Thanks for joining our monthly webinar series today on 1 year with Microsoft Copilot. We'll give everybody another 60 seconds to join, and then we'll kick things off. All right, welcome and thanks again for joining today on our monthly webinar series. Today, we're regrouping after a year, almost to the day, of Copilot being in existence. We're about 12 webinars down in our educational series. Today, we're taking a step back to say if we did this again, ... here's what we would do differently. With me today is Kathy Hayner, our resident Microsoft expert from our Microsoft partner at SureWeb. Kathy, thanks for joining me again today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Scott.
So as we get started, as always, make sure and use the Q&A feature throughout the presentation. We'll do our best to answer all the questions at the end, or when you stump us. If you stump us, we'll at least send a follow-up email after the fact. To get started, though, I promise only a couple slides as we intro, but I think it's relevant for you to understand who we are and our mission. Because we are a mission-driven company, everything we do points to our mission, which is to create strategic advantages designed to help our partners grow their businesses. Probably has not been another technology in our lifetime that can accomplish this more than AI. If you don't work with us today, who is Kelly Create? We just celebrated our 50th birthday last year. We're 51 years old. We have over 35 Pacific Northwest locations in Oregon, Washington, Montana, Northern Idaho, and Alaska. We work with over 20,000 client partners each month. I believe as of today, we're at 393 members on the team, about half of them technicians and engineers. We're headquartered in Kent, Washington, but again, have those locations across our footprint and really consider each of our locations their own headquarters with the ability to best serve our client partners. And at the end of the day, what do? We call it modern office technology solutions, separated into 4 different service areas: cloud and IT services, things we're talking about today, like Microsoft 365, Copilot, IT support services, cybersecurity solutions, might be physical security solutions, surveillance cameras, might be Microsoft 365 detection and response, security operations center, automation solutions like business process automation, software solutions, AP automation solutions, secure cloud fax solutions, HR management solutions, and then office equipment solutions, including printing and sending technologies to make your business run more effectively. But today we're here to talk about AI and Microsoft Copilot specifically. We've been on this journey for a year, many of you together on repeat visits. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully you found it valuable. If you need to go back in time and view previous webinars on our webpage, you can go to our events page and get caught up on all of our past webinars. Or you can go to our Copilot page. We have a dedicated Copilot page on our website. Scroll to the bottom and you'll see all of just our Copilot webinars if you need to catch up on an intro or on introduction to prompting. Maybe the most powerful thing about the use of Copilot is prompting, or specific applications, Word, Excel, and the like. So feel free to scroll back in time through those. But again, we're going back in time today. 1 year ago, almost to the day, I guess the day would be Friday, Kathy kicked off this journey with me a year ago, right after Microsoft Copilot was released. And we talked through getting started and adoption strategies. Today, we're taking a walk back in time to talk about, if we did it today, what would we do differently? The first thing and the most important thing that we didn't really talk about a year ago was this line: tell me about your company's AI strategy. Most organizations, most leaders don't have this fully baked or can't answer this if they're asked this question. So, number one challenge, if you're just starting or you're a year in, back up and answer this question. Develop this strategy, I think, is the number one thing most organizations have missed in their journey. It might be very basic to start, but develop your strategy, a one-line strategy, so you know where to point. Options, examples, summary level strategies, right? Our AI strategy is to utilize AI to automate routine tasks and free up time for strategic initiatives. Pretty big, pretty summary level, right? Our AI strategy is to integrate AI to streamline processes and foster a culture of continuous improvement. Again, pretty wide ranged, or make it more specific and tangible. Adopt AI-powered analytics to personalize marketing campaigns and boost customer engagement. So our strategy in that case is really focused on marketing, or utilize AI chatbots to handle customer inquiries. We're a customer service company, handle customer inquiries, freeing up staff for more complex issues. So again, bake out your company's AI strategy should really be the first point of emphasis. So if you're down the road, I'd say hit reverse, back up a little bit and figure out what your strategy is. If you're just getting started, start there. Most important thing I think that we've learned over the last year. And so whether you have a strategy or not, rubber meets the road, 3 out of 4 people in your organization are already using AI at work. That's very cool, but it's also pretty scary when we think about it, especially if they're using it without a strategy. So, Kathy, what are you seeing across your partner base?
Yeah, absolutely, Scott. So, what we're looking at here is the phenomenon of bring your own AI to work. This is a new phenomenon, as is everything AI. And so we've had time to learn about it over the course of the past about 2 years, and it is pervasive. So it would be surprising if at any of your organizations there's not at least one person who is using AI, whether or not it's sanctioned by your company yet. So you can see the breakdown here. Even our boomers generation are bringing their own AI. And the problem with this is that it's completely unregulated. So this can really lead to problems of data leakage, cybersecurity vulnerabilities, and operational challenges. This is the biggest issue that we are addressing today, head on, because, and it really ties into that having an AI strategy being the most important thing. You don't want your employees using rogue AI tools that you are not able to control or have any valuable insights pulling from those tools. So this is something that we'll address today as an issue that everyone is facing.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. And so again, if we were to do it all over again, Copilot has changed a ton since we went live. It changes almost daily. We've done a ton of formal training, made significant investments internally, but we've still learned on the fly quite a bit. So if we're to do it again, here are some of the steps we'd take. We already talked about the most important one, which is develop a strategy. But next one is start having everyone in your org use Copilot, the free Copilot, to start changing the way they work, or maybe just search for information. So, Kathy, Copilot licensing, like everything Microsoft, is ultra complicated, but there's this free Copilot. Fill us in on it and why and how to use it.
Absolutely. So Copilot has only been generally available for about a year now, and already they've gone through roughly 3 name changes. So all of the different Copilots can be very confusing. Usually when we're thinking about Copilot, we're thinking about Copilot for M365, which is the paid for edition. It is embedded in all of your Microsoft apps. What we're talking about here in step 1 is the free version of Copilot called Copilot Chat. If you have Microsoft for your organization, you have access to Copilot Chat. It's the free web version. And this is an immediate action that your organization can take to start reining in the bring your own AI problem. When we talk about the bring your own AI problem, a lot of people out there are using tools like ChatGPT that do not have any data restrictions or protections in place inherently. One example that I like to use of this is Samsung actually leaked some of their proprietary code because an engineer was checking the code for bugs using ChatGPT. So they immediately locked that down. They are on Microsoft and rolled out Copilot, both the paid version and making sure that their employees that do not have the paid version are using Copilot Chat, because what we see on this screen that is the most important here is that enterprise grade data protection. So Copilot for Chat, even the free version, comes with enterprise grade data protection, meaning that Copilot Chat is not teaching or using the data that you're inputting for its training of its LLM, its large language model. This is incredibly important in your data protection. So just by implementing an AI policy of using Copilot Chat rather than something like ChatGPT is a perfect first step in getting your company more secured with its data. And just to let everyone know, Copilot Chat actually uses the same LLM as ChatGPT Plus version. So a lot of people think, oh, Copilot's not, going to give me as quick answers or as well-researched answers as ChatGPT. That's just not the case. And your data is being protected using this free version rather than something like ChatGPT.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. We get the conversations all the time about not using Copilot because ChatGPT is so much better. Pretty much the same language model that it's referencing, but really that enterprise protection, data protection really is where it's all about. So again, you can see when you use Copilot, you've got the EDP checkmark badge in the upper right corner. Applies to any chat information. So again, it's not being shared with the outside world, right? So our recommendation starts to become, we should really lock down network environments to not have access to these other AI tools that your employees are bringing to work on their own, and force the use of Copilot. Again, doesn't have to be the paid version, can be the free version, right? Can use Secure Today. It is a different app, just so you know. So I have the corporate version of Copilot, and I have that Copilot for Microsoft 365 app on my iPhone. Right next to it, I have the Copilot app, which is the personal free version of Copilot as well. That's the one I talk to as I'm driving down the road typically and have a conversation with. And so why use Copilot? So Google replacement. So again, part of the steps here are getting Copilot, getting AI into your organization. Start using it just as a Google replacement. Here is just an example, and it doesn't even matter what the topic is. This one, funny enough, is how is a mule produced? Long story, over dinner the other night, somehow horses and donkeys came up, and the question was, how a mule is made? Long story short, I didn't. Now I've been wowed on that subject. But here it is. How is a mule produced? On the left, you have standard Googling, which for my brain is too many different things, right? I don't know where to look. I'm going to scroll through and find 4 different things to read. Or I can now use Copilot as my new Googling, and I have one concise, direct answer that 9.5 times out of 10 in my world and what I'm doing is a more accurate answer than me scrolling through the first page of Google to find the answer. So just start introducing it as just a Google replacement, and that's the first step on the way to better AI and better Copilot adoption. Step 2, in this process of if we had to do it again is implement for power users and specific business challenges. But power users is the big piece. And again, points back to have to develop the strategy first. Now let's implement to power users with specific business challenges.
Yeah, so this one's incredibly important in giving your AI rollout some organization and setting yourself up for success with AI. It is incredibly important, we've seen, to have executive sponsorship of the AI tools that are in use and executive participation in the plan of an AI rollout. Even having a specific AI committee can be incredibly helpful in making sure that there is ongoing education with these tools. So, unfortunately, Copilot and AI in general is not just a set it and forget it solution. There is a steep learning curve, and it does require continuous education and knowledge sharing within your organization. So, we want to make sure that it's not just one department or a couple of individuals who get really proficient in AI. They would be siloed in that case, and it's not going to, the rollout is not going to have the benefit to the organization that most companies are actually looking for. If we have individuals that become proficient, it's not going to translate into other departments as well. AI has specific functionalities that will be used more so for some departments than others. So having one designated individual in each of your generalized departments who is going to be your AI champion really is critical in having a smooth rollout that covers the entire company and not just certain individuals.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. And you can see how just it scales, right? Having a power user per department, or at least part departments involved in the AI rollout, maybe that fit into the strategy, then just goes downstream, and all of a sudden it's going from strategy to power users to individual users within the organization, and obviously so much interconnected there. But I think the most important thing we said is develop the strategy. In my mind, the second most important thing that we've really determined over the last year is there has to be an internal champion to drive AI across the org. There has to be an internal champion, right? Just because you have procured and bought Copilot licensing, just because maybe you've received some sort of training from us or somebody else, doesn't mean, and even just because you have some power users designated, doesn't mean it's going to scale throughout the organization. You've really got to have somebody internally who is that internal champion, who either has AI added to their job description or AI in their title or AI is their job description. That internal champion we've seen is key to the success. I've rolled out a lot of Copilot across our partner base. The partners that are being most successful have somebody internally who is really driving that strategy, right? It doesn't have to be the executive driving it. They can set the strategy, but somebody has to drive AI. Be talking to those power users and department leads about how they're using it in the organization. Do some of the legwork on helping them figure out how to use it. We see a lot of users, even power users, get frustrated after week 1, week 2, week 7 because it's not delivering the outcome that they want. A lot of times that's easy fixes of better prompting or data in the right place in SharePoint. Again, that AI internal champion can help drive that. So challenge would be to really designate who that internal champion can be within your organization is going to lead to more success. Third step is security assessment, readiness assessment. This is not changed from when we talked a year ago, has really been a key part of a successful rollout. Security is still a big thing. The key is, and the goal is to keep things simple, keep your team's data secure while making sure everyone can work efficiently, to ensure only the right people have access to sensitive information, and review Microsoft security settings. including permissions, multi-factor authentication. Sensitivity labels is a bigger and bigger thing in SharePoint, for access and for who can access and for how documents can be distributed or shared. So sensitivity labels is a new thing within SharePoint as well. I wouldn't say new, but I'd say using that is new for a lot of organizations. And so again, keeping it simple, letting everybody work efficiently, right? People have access to sensitive information. Reminder, if you haven't heard it before, Copilot does not expose any new security issues. What Copilot does is exposes maybe settings that are a problem, or really people with access to information that they shouldn't have access to. Very
Right.
easy in SharePoint, in Teams, and OneDrive to have access to files that you shouldn't have access to, and you probably don't even know you have access to. When you start co-piloting and asking for responses, it has access to all of that information. So is key. And Kathy, I think you've seen it across your large partner base. You've seen Copilot rolled out, and maybe the horror stories have rolled out without the security due diligence.
Right. It's again not a set it and forget it solution. And it's important to note that Copilot is not creating new vulnerabilities. It is, like Scott was referencing, exposing existing security vulnerabilities that may not have been a problem before, because people aren't digging too deeply into SharePoint or don't really know what they have access to. Now, with a system that is taking any information that is available to it, it is just exposing existing security vulnerabilities. So, an example of this would be, you roll out Copilot for some of your lower level employees who may accidentally have access to some of the SharePoint financial data. And, they're now able to query who's making more than me, or what is my CEO making? What did they make last year? That's the sort of problems that we run into when we talk about data cleanliness not being taken care of prior to a Copilot rollout. And actually, we're going to talk in this next portion about something that Microsoft has put in place so that you don't have to wait on getting everything tied up perfectly before deploying Copilot. They've now made it easier for you to protect your data with a quick click. In the meantime, you can be cleaning that data a little bit more carefully. But it is definitely the most major issue we hear about when it comes to Copilot deployments.
Yeah. And one of the things we hear often is, hey, it's just, the power users to start are just my small executive team. They have access to everything anyways, don't need the security assessment. And don't have a great argument to that if they already have access to everything. The problem we've seen, though, is they're 2-3 months in and now super excited about Copilot and want to roll it out. Now they're adding a license for other users downstream without the idea of, hey, we need to go back and do the security assessment, readiness assessment now, so that there isn't that contamination of data. So fine to take that approach, but have to keep it on the checklist before going further. Definitely want to do that security assessment. Again, Q&A is open, so add questions to Q&A if you have any. We'll answer them during or after the end of the presentation. But step 4 is restricted SharePoint search, SharePoint advanced management. Ties into security and readiness assessment. Kathy just mentioned it. This is a feature that was not here a year ago when we kicked things off. Much more effective and more simple way to manage permissions and access, which again is one of the most scary things with Copilot, is people having access to things they should not have access to. So SharePoint restricted search, SharePoint advanced management. But before diving into that, back up a little bit, right? Not one of the steps, but it would be a pre-step in my mind to all Copilot rollouts, is to use Copilot at its fullest. Your data needs to live in Microsoft 365. So in SharePoint, which is Teams, OneDrive, SharePoint, the real power of Copilot over other AI models like ChatGPT, which is the one we hear about all the time. The real power, other than enterprise data protection, which is very powerful, is that it references all of your data within your entire Microsoft 365 tenant. So if all of your files still live on an old school file server, you click your P drive, go to your file share to access your files, that's fine. But Copilot won't be able to access those files. So when you're using Copilot, it'll reference your email and such, but it's not going to access all that data that lives on your file server. So kind of precursor to, in our mind, any Copilot effective rollout is utilize SharePoint. Get your data living in SharePoint. But Kathy, talk to us a little more about restricted SharePoint search and SharePoint advanced management.
Absolutely. So Microsoft, when they rolled out Copilot and got the feedback from partners, they realized that the number one thing holding people back from AI rollouts were security and data concerns. So, very soon after releasing Copilot, they released this restricted SharePoint search. The intention of restricted SharePoint search is actually not supposed to be a long-term solution. It's a short-term solution to allow, um, you know, basically a one-click solution to restrict your SharePoint files and different teams within SharePoint, um, to be able to roll out Copilot without being scared about data leakage or permissions issues. Um, so the entire point of restricted SharePoint search is don't let the security measures and concerns hold you back from starting your Copilot journey. It with restricted SharePoint search, you're able to exclude an entire folder and or library from certain groups of viewers. So you can do this immediately with a partner like Kelly Create. This is not something that you're going to have to be doing as individuals. When we talk about security concerns and security setup for Copilot deployments, we are talking about using a knowledgeable partner like Kelly Create to be able to roll out these measures for you. But the entire point is that you can get started with Copilot likely more quickly than you would think with the feature of restricted SharePoint search.
Yeah, it's been a great ad over the past year for sure. It was much more complicated to get things off the ground without that 12 months ago, the first time we came to you. So with that, that's kind of the 4 steps we would take as of today. We like to keep things simple. Those are the 4 steps we'd take, but then you've got to figure out your ROI, right? What is my return on investment? It scales across the company, right? $30 a month times one person doesn't seem insane. Start scaling across the company, it can go in a hurry. So what is your return on investment? Pretty easy to do some math on cost of an employee, monthly cost, weekly cost, hourly cost. At the end of the day, Copilot costs roughly $30 per month. So how much time do you have to save using Copilot for there to be a return?
And something to mention here as well is that a lot of people who are looking to deploy AI to their organization really want to have these tangible, quantifiable numbers of what is the ROI on this product. Something to point out is that there is individual ROI that can be calculated like what you see on the screen, but there's also a less tangible business value that we can talk about. A lot of the top talent out there is looking for organizations who use AI effectively, who have programs for training on AI. And overall, also, there is we believe there's going to be a very sharp learning curve that if you get ahead of that learning curve, it's only going to benefit you in the years to come. So just make sure to separate. Yes, we do have these individual quantifiable ROIs for individual employees. But there's also a greater value to the business as a whole for starting these Copilot and AI initiatives. Just an important thing to mention when we talk about ROI.
Yeah, for sure. And when I look at ROI, I mean, I can narrow down full month ROI after a meeting or two. So yesterday, ROI done, finished, tripled in one day for me. Long day, back to back. Was able to send out meeting recaps in 5 minutes. So I had a 90-minute management meeting and then a 60-minute all company team meeting. And if I was taking notes in those meetings and sending out a recap, A, probably would have taken me an hour to go through my notes, type the email out, send the recap. But let's be honest, it probably wouldn't have gotten done actually at the end of the day. So saved me a bunch of time to send out the recap. It was accurate, and it probably wouldn't have gotten done otherwise, which our management meeting, there were action items on there, some accountability things that needed to get out and will allow us to be more effective in the future. Our all company team meeting, people miss and would have been left out of the loop. So I can quantify ROI down pretty quickly just on the meeting recap functionality before even getting into more advanced things. And really the stats are that users of Copilot who have received some sort of training and are saving an estimate of 10 hours a month. So 2.5 hours a week, pretty easy ROI. And that in my mind is a pretty low number. We're seeing a lot more savings. And what are the different impacts, right? All sorts of different things. Not going to read each one to you. Again, meetings, if the only thing I used it for was meeting summaries, recapping meetings, it's valuable in that sense alone. Can replace things like Otter AI or other tools you've seen tied into Teams. Getting answers from across all of our data. So searching all of our SharePoint data to get answers, drafting email replies, or by functions. HR, we are writing most of our job descriptions these days using Copilot, and then it references our other job descriptions and the formats we use. We've had one of our managers recently create an HR agent, that as we have applicants applying for technician positions, there's a lot of them. We're able to put those resumes in this agent and through prompting, have it help us prioritize which resumes we should interview based on qualifications on the resumes. Huge time savings. Creating project plans and scope of work in IT has been big for us. But want to make it a little personal. So ask Kathy to share with us, where she is seeing the most value of using Copilot in her day-to-day work. And Michelle Sievers, our director of marketing, thanks for the awesome image replica of Kathy.
Thank you. Yes. So I've been using Copilot now for a little bit over a year. And so just to reference it back to, each different department in organizations will have a different specific functionality that works best for them and that provides them with the most efficiencies. My department would be from within sales. One of the huge benefits that I have is the meeting recap and follow-up items. Those are generated for every meeting that I run. I typically run about 6 or 7 meetings a day. So just being able to have those notes and those follow-up items accessible immediately is fantastic. So that's probably my number one use case. Second use case here is email summary. So there's two sort of parts of that. One is for excessively long email threads, TLDR, too long don't read. You can type that into Copilot, hey, summarize this email thread for me. It'll pull out the most important points, and then boom, I'm caught up rather than having to read through something that takes me 10 minutes to read through versus 30 seconds. The other portion of email summary is I can actually query Copilot to tell me, hey, can you tell me, summarize the emails that Scott has sent to me since February 1st? of this year. It'll pull out the most important emails, summarize sort of what they were about, what the answers to those emails looked like as well. And that is extremely helpful when I'm going into business reviews and just meetings with partners in general. Now, partner questions. I get a ton of very specific partner questions all day, every day. And Copilot really has become a bit of a Google replacement and also a replacement for my specialist's time. If I have to go to a specialist and ask a question, I might be waiting on them to get back to me. Whereas I ask Copilot, it gives me an instant answer. Partner analysis as well. So I can analyze the different meetings that I've had with partners over the course of the last year, over the course of the last couple of months, the type of deals that I closed with partners. This is something that has become very valuable for me in summarizing huge expanses of communications and meetings with partners of mine. Content generation and improvement. Actually, I did a Copilot presentation at Kelly Create in Medford, Oregon, about 8 months ago, and I fully generated a PowerPoint presentation using Copilot, made edits to it, so that was a fantastic use of Copilot. Additionally, if I'm generating an email blast or something like that, I can ask for just minimal corrections on my document. I can ask, hey, can you make this shorter, or can you make the sentiment happier? Those are kind of things that I use as well. And then tracking opportunities. I can track specific partner questions about specific vendors or customer opportunities just by querying Copilot. I don't have to go through a load of my notes in order to find that. So really huge ROI from me specifically on Copilot.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. And wow, Michelle used some creative prompting on my image here on bicep size and hair thickness compared to real life. But really, when I look at where I see value as well, it's similar things. Meeting recap, right? I could, if I just stopped at meeting recap and meeting summaries, huge ROI just in that. So that's really the easy win, I think, for anybody. Like Kathy mentioned, 6-7 meetings a day. If you're in 2 meetings a day on Teams, meeting recap is huge. I love in-person meetings. One of the things I struggled with for a minute there with in-person meetings is I didn't have Copilot to do the meeting recap for me. So I'm now I typically try to be paperless anyway, so I have my laptop with me, or I've turned on my phone and started a Teams meeting, even if it's me one-on-one with a partner, so that I can Copilot it and still get a meeting recap with that in-person meeting. Meeting preparation as well. So if I'm coming into a meeting with multiple people, again, kind of as Kathy mentioned, I can ask Copilot what my recent interactions are with these 4 different people that I'll be meeting with, and it pulls it in organization timeline for me and mentions what I should talk about in that meeting. Mass communication emails. So across our partner base, there's a lot of different notices we need to send out about Microsoft 365 increasing their price as of April, on billing by the month for an annual commit, or on a security concern, or on updates, and being able to just reference that email that might come to me from somewhere else and have that email now be created, or that communication now being created in my writing format, in the Kelly Create marketing writing format with the correct information, has been huge for me. Just as a Google replacement, I mentioned earlier, not Googling and scrolling through the first page of information, which, the first ones are sponsored anyways and maybe aren't what I'm after. Getting a single direct answer back, no more Googling, just Copiloting. Creating scopes of work. So we do technology, we do IT, we do cyber. Being able to write a 1-page, 2-page, simple, professional, direct statement of work for a project we're working on, where myself and our team used to spend a lot of time having to write those statements of work. Formal writing for me, there's times we need to write more formal, not maybe what I love to do, helps me with that. And then Excel. We've heard a lot of people struggle with using Copilot in Excel. Excel was not fully released in Copilot in the beginning, so it took a little longer. But I work with Excel data that is a lot of names, email addresses, things as easy as first names in the left column, last names in the right column, but I need those in the same column. I know there's formulas for that kind of stuff, but they are not taking up space in my head. So the ability to use Copilot for those types of things, to add a column that combines first name, last name, that's the way I speak to Copilot, and it gives me that output. So huge ROI in little things. And we're not even talking here about things like agents or actions or more advanced things that will take Copilot to the next level. This is just individual type things, not even getting to the departmental level, I think, for both Kathy and I. And so really, in summary, the question is, right, from an ROI standpoint, is Copilot worth more than free lunch to your people? And if you ask your people on your team, overwhelmingly, the survey says they would pick Copilot over a free lunch. And Kathy, there's the ROI, but then there's the cultural impact as well, right?
Right. This is part of that cultural shift. Something that we talked about earlier when I said there's the individual value, but then there's the business value. The cultural shift is towards people wanting to use AI in their job, in their daily functions, wanting to work for companies that allow for AI use and even for AI expansion, growth of their employees within AI. So it's it's only just started. We've had Copilot for a year. We've had Chat GPT for a little bit over that. And already the adoption trajectory is all the way going towards people wanting to use AI, people looking for companies that implement AI and looking for places that they can grow within AI. So it's just about opening up that conversation and getting started. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it's it's a good trajectory to start on today if you haven't already.
Yep, your people are looking for it. So with that, hopefully that was valuable. If we had to do it again, we do have some questions, it looks like, in the chat. So I'll touch upon those a little bit. I can't get the toothpaste back in the tube. So AI or Copilot is already being used at my company. How do we rein it back in? And I guess I'd start to the beginning of our presentation and set your strategy. So it's okay to backpedal a little bit. And before you do anything, set your strategy of what the goal is with using AI in your organization. Right. Once that strategy is set, now we can move forward. That might be roll out Copilot free to everybody. That might be.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Scott. I was just going to say also that within setting that strategy, there should be guidelines and restrictions that are clear to employees about what tools they can and cannot use. So one of the things that you can do here is explicitly state that unregulated tools like ChatGPT are not allowed at your organization. You can even put in security measures or have your partner like Kelly Create put in security measures for you to block access on work devices. And then the third important piece is that, they can still be using their personal devices. So it's really important to be training employees on acceptable use. So training them on using Copilot chat rather than Chat GPT. Training them that it's the same LLM, it's just not spreading our data and using our data to train their model. So it's a mix of that, setting the policy, setting the guidelines, sometime even implementing restrictions like not being able to use ChatGPT on a work device, and then implementing the training so that there all are alternatives that your employees can be using.
Yep, thanks. So it goes back to strategy for sure. Another question, how do you handle solution sprawl? That is a real thing, right? Lots of software companies, all software companies trying to integrate, include AI features and tools in their products, confuses people. I'd argue that a lot of them aren't even AI, but they're calling them AI. So I would say the first sprawl to address is just the generalized AI sprawl, right? We're not going to be able to handle all the different line of business applications, AI specifically, but there's sprawl, as we mentioned, in bring your own AI to work. So I would say the first place to handle the sprawl is in generalized AI. What is our strategy? Our preference is it should be Copilot if you're using Microsoft 365. And then turn off all those other channels so there's not sprawl. So one user's not using chat, one user's not using Lovable, one user's not using Claude. So turn off that sprawl. And then the focus is on strategy is which of these line of business applications do we want to explore their AI strategy? If you're using Copilot, there's ways to integrate Copilot with third-party applications. There's a Salesforce plugin. There's different plugins for the different tools or ways to use the API to use Copilot inside of those applications is one piece to explore, or pick and choosing which of those AI solutions to use. So I would recommend kill the sprawl from a generalized AI perspective, and then based on your strategy, focus on which applications could serve the most value.
Right. And there will be some cases that are industry specific when there may need to be multiple tools involved. But that certainly should be a conversation with your IT partner, and also a conversation of what is going back to what is your AI strategy? What are the goals that you're trying to achieve? So there may be cases where you might be better off using multiple tools um, or integrating certain tools. It's always going to be a greater conversation, and that's why we need to have that roadmap in place of where you're trying to get with your AI strategy.
You bet. In wrap up, last question was around training services. So Copilot is huge. Training services. We definitely offer training services. Training on prompting is the number one training that leads to the most value. So when we see people first start using Copilot, how you prompt really determines what the outcome, the deliverable from Copilot is. So a bad prompt equals bad data to you. So training on prompting for teams, for departments, we've seen a ton of value in that. Happy to talk about how we could provide some training to help jumpstart your Copilot adoption. Hopefully today was valuable for you. I know it's a lot of information, and really today was about if we had to do it again, how would we do it? Again, hopefully it was valuable for you, a takeaway for your organization. Every Wednesday in the month of April, we do Copilot and coffee at 9 a.m. Not a presentation format like this, but just come. You can be on camera. You can share your screen. We can share and brainstorm ideas you're using Copilot in your organization. Goal is it's information sharing and to help jumpstart you. One of our attendees last week said that was so helpful. I've now been using Copilot to search my emails, respond to emails, used it on a project that would have taken me 15 minutes and not been super accurate. It is amazing, and you just need to not be scared to ask it stuff and see what it can do. So just have to get inside and start working. So feel free to join us for that, our final one next week in April. And our webinar next month on May 22nd is Guard Your Business. So we'll go deeper into Copilot security solutions, SharePoint Advanced Search, Restricted Search, to make sure that as you're rolled out, we're showing you how to more easily manage Copilot and the data within it. Again, thank you for joining. Hopefully this was valuable for you. Kathy, appreciate your expertise and the partnership joining today. We'll send out an email after the presentation with a link to the recording to share within your organization. And we'll have Copilot help us choose one lucky winner of an Amazon gift card. Hope to see you next month. Thanks again for joining.
Thank you.